So quick instructions for tonight. Please do keep yourself muted until we get into the breakout session. So we'll do a larger presentation with the group and have some opportunities to do smaller breakout rooms with your neighbors to have more community conversations with your neighbors itself. So use the chat to just ask any questions that you have, and staff will get to that. And again, interpretation is provided, so you can access that on the bottom of the kind of the Zoom options there. So I will turn it over to Councilwoman Sandoval for to really kick off the meeting, and then I'll start the presentation with the agenda.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Councilwoman Amanda Sandoval, for those who may not know me. I was born and raised in the Highland neighborhood, and my family's owned a restaurant in Highland since 1972. So very familiar with the neighborhood. I graduated from North High School. Our son is a senior at North, so you'll see me in the neighborhood often. I currently live in Berkeley, and I've had the honor of representing you for the last 3 years as your Denver City Councilwoman. And one thing that is so important are these planning initiatives, and they set the stage for the next 40 years. So that means my kids and my grandkids. It will, and the built environment. And as displacement and gentrification has occurred in my lifetime in the north side, I want to make sure that we highlight opportunities and call out those situations within our planning documents, and these solutions that we'll bring forward will hopefully help us with the built environment, with parks, help when bonds come. I can use this planning document as justification of why North and West Denver needs a bond and bond money. So thank you for joining us for such an important endeavor in the Northwest Denver. And if you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to myself. I have my office manager, Gina Volpe, on the call as well, and my other council aide, Melissa Horn. You'll see their little blue backgrounds that we coordinate. Unfortunately, mine's not working, so I have a normal background. But if you ever need anything, always feel free to email or call our office, and that's what we're here for, is to help you all. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilman Sandoval. So moving into the agenda, before we dive too far into the presentation, we typically have been doing some quick polling on demographics just to understand who we're engaging with and who we're not engaging with, just so that we're able to adapt our community engagement efforts in the future. So I went ahead and launched a demographic poll for those that are comfortable filling it out. I'll give you guys a little bit of time to do so, and then we can really dive in here. Okay, I'll go ahead and end the poll now. I think majority of us were able to fill it out. So thank you, everybody, for doing that. So with respect to the agenda today, we're going to cover a few things before we break down to groups. First, we're going to cover what is a Near Northwest Area Plan. For those that haven't been involved in this planning process before, I'll provide a quick overview of what is the plan, what we've talked about so far and heard from the community, and what where we're heading next. So after that, we'll do some quick poll questions, some interactive polling with a larger group, and then have an opportunity to, again, go break out into smaller group discussions. So the Near Northwest Area Plan encompasses 4 neighborhoods: Chaffee Park, Sunnyside, Highland, and Jefferson Park. So why plan? So planning provides the opportunity to really step back, think big picture as a community of who we want to be in the future 20 years from now. So it allows us to talk together about where our community wants to be in the next 20 years, and then come up with specific strategies on how to get us there. So often we get stuck talking about the immediate issues. So this is really an opportunity to talk, again, long-term vision for the community. So the plan itself is a policy document, so helps inform the future decision-making and guiding public and private investments in your neighborhood. So going back to what Councilwoman Sandoval was saying about guiding, future investments through GO bonds and such, and in parks as well. So what plans don't do, it does not change regulations or establish specific budgets or provide detailed improvements on specific improvements to roads or bike lanes and such like that. But it does help guide those decisions for the future as plans get implemented over time. So while it might not change the regulations or establish budgets, it helps the policy guidance needed to make those decisions in the future. So in addition to neighborhood and small area plans, there's another layer of planning that occurs above, which we call citywide plans. So those citywide plans help establish a vision and policy framework for the entirety of the city. So it's important that our neighborhood plans are consistent with citywide plans and their goals and their policies. But it also provides an opportunity for this neighborhood planning process to provide more detailed and customized recommendations for the neighborhoods. So they address many topics. And it's an opportunity to really talk about how these different systems of our built environment, including land use, transportation, parks, all work together to create the neighborhood that you guys wanted to be in the future. So what's in the plan specifically? This is a general outline of what a plan typically includes. So in the introduction, we typically describe the vision of that helps paint the bigger picture of all we heard throughout the process and what the community wants to accomplish over time. And then it also helps us plan for equity. So how we think about and address equity in the context of the near Northwest neighborhoods. And then outlines more specific policies and strategies by topic to help achieve the vision that's articulated in the introduction. And then we also have dedicated neighborhood recommendations where needed, where we need to speak to better neighborhood specific concerns and ideas. Then finally, implementation is an opportunity to talk about the tools that are needed to implement the ideas that are coming out of the plan, and then start to identify priority recommendations based on community feedback. So this is a quick timeline that covers where we've been and where we're going. So we kicked this process off in the summer of 2021 to really listen to community members and understand the neighborhoods. And then also to talk about specific issues and opportunities to help inform preliminary ideas around recommendations in early 2021. And now we're here to better refine some of those recommendations and discuss key topics where we need more direction in order to create recommendations for the plan. So we are a little over midpoint of the process right now. So we still have a lot of time to work with the community to continue refining recommendations and ultimately seeing them take shape in the form of a draft plan early 2023. So what have we heard so far through this planning process? Phase one, we call it understanding the area. So it's really an opportunity to understand the community's likes, dislikes, and ideas for the future. And again, identify the common issues and opportunities that we need to address as part of this planning process. Here are some kind of bullets of what we did in that phase. So we provided multiple ways for people to be engaged, including a virtual kickoff meeting such as this one. We had a similar format back a year ago. an interactive survey, but also just allow us to be able to be out into the community to engage with neighbors. So we attended many community events, including the Honey Halloween Party, the Sunnyside Music Festival, Quick Newton basketball tourney that we hosted for the youth. So it was really an opportunity to just get out into their neighborhood, get to know residents, and really just create awareness around this planning process. So some high-level takeaways from phase one. We've heard a lot, but if we had to boil it down to a few bullets, here are some of the key takeaways. We learned that we need to preserve and celebrate the history and culture that exists here today and have existed in the past, and to be able to provide more active commercial uses in our mixed use areas and also where they don't exist in some neighborhoods like Chaffee Park. And then to do more to support our neighborhood businesses and districts in the area, maintain existing and create more affordable housing options, but also recognize the need for better design outcomes where a lot of new construction is happening. Better and safe mobility options, especially knowing we have so many barriers that run through the neighborhood, including I-70, Federal, 38th, which become challenging for crossings, and more parks and trees and improved amenities in parks and rec centers. So along with all that community engagement, we did a lot of what we call existing conditions analysis. So that's an opportunity to really dive into the data and see what the data is telling us to tell the story of your neighborhood. So using a lot of those existing conditions analysis and everything we've heard from our phase one engagement, it led us to an issues and opportunities report, which helped inform the community conversations in phase two. So all of these documents are available online, so feel free to take a look when you have the time. So again, phase two was an opportunity to define the issues and start developing initial recommendations. So really is an opportunity to dive deeper into key topics and themes, discuss neighborhood specific issues, and start to brainstorm ideas and solutions around them to address it. So again, quick update on things that we did. We had a lot of engagement opportunities from online surveys, virtual roundtable discussions to talk about certain specific topics of the plan, and also in-person workshops to talk about your neighborhood. And we also spent a lot of time in the community through street campaigns where we put some yard signs at parks, got to know the business owners in the area. And CD1 actually partnered with us, and they were able to pay for a door-to-door flying for all neighborhoods to create more awareness around our events. And then lastly, we also work with promotoras, which are community outreach professionals, to do more focused outreach to reach our low-income and Spanish-speaking populations through some intercept surveys. So again, some key takeaways that have come from phase two that's informing this process now. A little bit more detail here. We learned that we need to offer multiple ways of preserving and celebrating culture and history through programs, but also through our built environment. And also address the wide range of concerns related to the loss of older homes in the area. We'll talk a little bit about that today. And ensure more services, streetlight improvements like trees are provided in our mixed use and commercial areas. Supporting the construction of more affordable housing and prioritizing keeping residents that are at risk of displacement in place. Focus on supporting small businesses as well as opportunities to provide to train a new workforce and retain and attract jobs. And also specifically to neighborhood streets. We've heard that in our neighborhood streets, we should focus on ped and bike infrastructure improvements, and for busier streets like Federal, we should really focus on how to create safer crossings for people. And in all along those corridors and busy streets like Federal and Spear and 38th, they should come with more trees and green infrastructure to treat stormwater. and another improve existing park and rec center amenities, as well looking at opportunities to include new ones. And then a multi-action strategy to increase food access in the area and making sure that the financial and cultural barriers that residents face are also addressed. And then lastly, to increase awareness and access to our health and social services, ranging from job training, education, and affordable childcare. So what's next in this next phase? This current phase is an opportunity to have an early check-in on some of the working draft recommendations, but also discuss key topics where we would like to have more direction from community members before we start writing other types of recommendations. So just a quick summary of our engagement activities in this upcoming month. So today we're having the virtual community workshop. In the next 2 weeks, we'll have our in-person neighborhood workshop. So please invite your neighbors and come to those. We'll have office hours, which is just an opportunity to talk to staff about some of the content we're putting out there. If there are any questions about that, we'll reserve time virtually and in person to be available. Focus groups, we've been meeting with businesses in the areas and having more focus or more targeted conversations with different types of stakeholders. And then focused engagement. One of the gaps that we've identified in our engagement so far is particularly the elderly community. So we'll be looking to work with kind of organizations in the area to make sure we are engaging those folks as well. So here's a quick schedule. It's all on our website and will also be shared in our breakout sessions. So Highland and Jefferson Park on the 29th, Chaffee Park on the 1st, and Sunnyside on the 5th. So again, everything is available online. And then online surveys, that will be available on the week of the 26th. So again, an opportunity to discuss or review draft recommendations and discuss focus areas, which we'll cover a little bit today. So we are here right now at the beginning of phase 3 of early fall of 2023. We anticipate having a draft plan out into the community early 2023, and then have the plan adopted if everything's on track by the first half of 2023. So we will go ahead and start doing some poll questions. So some of the 2 focus areas we'll be discussing as part of the larger group is development along major transit corridors, and I'll explain what that means, and then also preserving affordability and expanding housing options. So development along major transit corridors, this conversation is focused on development within mixed use and commercial areas along our major streets where major transit investments are envisioned, so Federal, 38th, and Spear. And specifically, we're looking at these areas because, again, these are where there are opportunities and plans envisioned for dedicated bus lanes, frequent service, and enhanced bus stops. So what we've heard regarding these areas, some key priorities that we've heard from the community is that we need to direct growth to walkable areas near transit and services, support the development of affordable housing, and then some other priorities include, making sure that future development is complemented by wider sidewalks, enhanced streetscapes, and small open spaces, and making sure that it creates opportunities for existing and new small and culturally relevant businesses in the area. And then also recognizing to retain older buildings that provide a more consistent street edge and contributes to the local history and culture of the area. So back in phase 1, we've asked people to weigh in on the vision for the corridor. So when we asked about the vision, included various options related to the building form and scale. So the graph on the slide shows specific results for Federal and 38th. So we've heard from people that they want to maintain, again, existing low-scale buildings with a consistent street frontage and is representative of the history of the area. And while improving the streetscapes, while exploring a range of height options, including up to 5 stories along these corridors. So we will look at a few ideas that explore these community preferences around height along the corridors that we've been talking about here. So here are some additional background information to think about and consider as we look at these different ideas. Today, under current rules of development, a maximum of 2 to 4 stories are allowed to be built along Federal and 38th, and 5 to 7 stories along Spear. So the ideas we'll explore include looking at areas where a maximum of 5 stories can be accommodated along Federal and 38th, and 8 to 12 along Spear. So it's important to note that the lower end of the range represents the base zoning height. And so kind of height what you can achieve today, and then the upper end represents the height that can be achieved if additional affordable housing is provided beyond the city's affordable housing requirement, which ranges between 8 to 12%. So idea 1 is just maintaining the current height requirements as they exist today. So what that means is Federal and 38th, again, is 2 to 4 stories, and Spear, 5 to 7 stories. So again, the 2 to 3 is just kind of the lower range. The 5 is the lower range, and 4 and 7 is just what you can achieve if someone chooses to build beyond the city's minimum affordable housing requirement. Idea 2 is to look at increasing potential heights at major transit stops. So again, these corridors are envisioned to have higher levels of transit service, and these are some of the identified stops. So that means on Federal and 38th, it would be 5 to 7, Spear 8 to 12. And it's also important to note that height beyond 5 stories along Federal north of 38th and along 38th itself are unlikely because there are additional height restrictions that are in place to encourage more sensitive transitions to residential neighborhoods. Idea 3 is to increase potential heights at major transit stops and corridors. So really just major transit stops and along the commercial and mixed use areas along the streets here. So I will go ahead and do our first poll question about development along major corridors here. So which idea do you prefer? And we'll have an opportunity to discuss the results and the reason why you pick some of these in our small group sessions. Okay. Oh, still going. All right, I'll give it maybe 5 more seconds here. Okay. I'll share the results now. So it looks like a mix of maintaining and increasing potential heights at major transit stops, and idea 3 being the most popular for this group. So we'll continue to monitor and see how that changes over time through our online surveys and such. So the next topic is preserving affordability and expanding housing options. So what we've heard, again, is that we need to address the loss of affordability and character that results when older homes are replaced with larger and often more times more expensive homes. So this was identified as a key concern throughout the process. And another, what we've heard kind of related to that is that we need to look at different opportunities to preserve older forms of missing middle housing. So when we talk about missing middle housing, it's typically anything between a single unit home and a large multifamily structure, includes duplexes, row homes, small apartment buildings. And some of these older missing middle housing has been in a neighborhood for a long time. So you see a lot of examples here today. So we've heard a strong desire to preserve these older, often more affordable homes in the community. So here are some preliminary draft recommendations that addresses both of those concerns about how we preserve affordability in the area, and also looking at opportunities to preserve missing middle housing, older missing middle housing. So some of these ideas include the first bullet here: allow the owner of an existing house to add an additional unit if the original structure is preserved. So what that means is if you live in a zone district where you can only have one unit on a lot, the rule might be that if you preserve and retain the existing home, you're allowed to build an additional primary unit on your lot. The second bullet is incentives that encourage renovations and additions, especially in areas that have been defined as potentially historic. We've heard that it's really hard to do additions and renovations to older homes without running into a lot of rules related to zoning. So to be able to create more flexibility around them. And then the third bullet here is a demolition ordinance or fees to encourage the preservation of buildings. So making sure it's more costly to actually tear down a home, so that builders think again before demoing a home. And then also encouraging the reuse of building materials if a home is demoed. And then promoting the upkeep and rehabilitation of existing homes, particularly for residents that are of low income and don't have the financial resources to really upkeep their homes. And so just being able to provide the resources for them to be able to stay in place. The last bullet here is just exploring other types of incentives, programs, and partnerships, particularly with our nonprofit community, potentially land trusts to preserve some of the older missing middle housing that we have in the neighborhood, potentially permanently, to be able to de-restrict them. So I will go ahead and launch the second question for tonight, which is, do you agree with the draft recommendations listed on the slide here? And again, we'll have an opportunity to discuss in small groups. Okay, I'll give it, we've had more people weigh in for the other questions, so I'll just give it maybe 3 more seconds or 4 more seconds. Okay, so majority agree, a few neutral and strongly agree, so just be able to keep that in mind. Okay, and so in addition to preserving affordability, we've also heard that we need to look at new ways to introduce more missing middle housing options that promote affordability and are more compatible with the older homes in the neighborhood. So there are plenty of examples of missing middle housing in the neighborhood today, newer missing middle housing, but again, the concern is that they are often bigger, more expensive than the homes they replace, and they don't fit within the neighborhood. So based on those concerns, we've identified some specific priorities to consider as we think about how to integrate new missing middle housing in the neighborhood today. Some of these include ensuring, again, compatibility and scale and characteristics of the surrounding neighborhood, discouraging larger homes that may be less affordable, so potentially controlling the size of the home or units themselves. removing barriers on small and unique lots. Throughout the process, we've heard a lot of challenges for smaller lots in the area that can or that are entitled to building a missing middle home type. But because of lot restrictions around minimum lot sizes or the width itself, they're not able to do so. And lastly, again, just to partner with community partners, including nonprofits, nonprofit builders, and community land trusts to develop on-site affordable housing as we create more missing middle housing opportunities in the neighborhood. So the next set of slides will look at different ideas how to increase middle housing in neighborhoods today with the listed priorities in mind. There will eventually be a citywide project that looks at this more holistically. There's a citywide policy that directs a project for our department to look at this, but this is really an opportunity to identify and speak to the priorities for the near Northwest area. So the first idea is to allow 2-unit homes such as duplexes and tandem homes, which are 2 detached homes on a single lot, in the remaining areas of the neighborhood where only single-unit homes are allowed today. So that's mainly the portions of Chaffee Park and the western side of Sunnyside. Idea 2 is to allow for more triplexes, townhomes, and small multi-unit buildings like the ones we were describing before along our major corridors, again, 38th and Federal, and also adjacent to corridors and centers, which are our kind of mixed use and commercial areas that provide more services. So to be able to have opportunities for people to live closer to those areas. Idea 3 is to allow, again, for triplexes, townhomes, and small multi-unit homes at corner lots where larger lots are typically located, with curb access along the front and side, and also along busier, wider neighborhood streets where we have available or planned multimodal transportation improvements. So think buses, think bicycle routes. So I'll go ahead and do a poll here again. Great, which is like, which ideas to prefer? This is you can select more than one. We understand that these aren't all mutually exclusive. So feel free to pick the options that work best for you or that you prefer. Give it 10 more seconds. Okay, we'll end the poll right now. So looks like a mix bag here, but idea 2 along / adjacent to corridor and centers are in the lead here. So, okay. All right, so it is time for breakout discussions, and we're actually right on time, a little bit ahead. So I'll go ahead and discuss that a little bit here. So we will break into groups by neighborhoods of interest. So the way you were able to kind of identify in the Zoom which neighborhood you're interested in discussing more. So this is, again, an opportunity to discuss some of the poll questions in greater detail.